So, interestingly, similar to Carrie and I actually have opposite problems. I have trouble knowing when to stop, but it has landed me in some very similar places. So I come from this family of the Amazon women that have all been manless. So it has sort of placed this curse on my head. And let's see, my grandfather shot himself. My dad left fled when I was 3, and my mother dated her way through the United Nations, which, as you can imagine, has left me slightly confused. So, in addition to that, I have only one sister, and my mother made the brilliant choice of sending me into an all-girls school in New York City from the age of 0 to 18. So the only men that I could possibly meet were bouncers at Studio 54, the doormen, or the bus drivers. This was a problem. So my mother, in addition, I would know that there was a man in the house when the doors were locked, but she always came out singing. So I knew one thing when I was very small, which was I wanted to be singing too. So about from the age of around 10 years old, my anthem was the song from Oklahoma, I'm Just a Girl Who Can't Say No. As you can imagine, this has gotten me into some trouble. So when I was about 28 years old, I was living in New York City. I had broken up with the love of my life, and I was a social worker working in the South Bronx with teenage delinquents and child abuse. As you can imagine, eating at White Castle every day and touring the projects, there were not a lot of people with whom to go very far. So there was, however, one straight man in my MSW program. It was the librarian. He was from Spain, and his name, I think, was something like Pablo. So as you can imagine, I spent a lot of time checking out books that semester. One day, however, Pablo was missing, and I felt that we had made this really deep connection. It was sort of one of those one-sided things, but I had a very vivid imagination and a lot of hope. So I asked around, and I said, where's Pablo? And they said, actually, he's been checked into the hospital. He had an accident. So I thought, perfect. This is my great opportunity. So even though we had never actually had a date, I thought, I'm going to go surprise him. I'm going to nurse him back to health. So I went out and I got him this huge chocolate milkshake, because everyone in the hospital needs a milkshake. And I went and I got him a stack of intellectual, manly magazines. And I took 2 buses about 40 minutes across town. And I got to this hospital on the Upper East Side. And I was shaking. I was so nervous. And I went up to the front desk and I told them who I was going to visit. And they said, he's in the ICU. Are you family? Or I was, of course, not family, so this is a problem. So I think I lied or something and said I was a very close friend. And then they sort of shuffled around on the computer a little bit more, and they said, actually, he's just been checked out an hour ago. He's gone back to Spain with his family. So I sat there on this little bench, feeling very lonely, while the milkshake dripped down my arm. And I drank the milkshake, and I felt as if I had lost something enormous, something that I had never had. So I went to this brilliant Argentinian therapist I was seeing at the time. Her name was Dr. Olarte, and I'm going to try to do her accent, and I won't do it very well. But I told her that my heart was broken and that I was devastated, and this. And there was this other factor that was kind of an issue. So back at the hospital, I said to her woman, "Well, what was wrong with him? Can you tell me?" And she said, "Oh yeah, he was in a coma." Okay, anyway, so it was a problem. So I go to my therapist and I tell her, it's the symbolic death. It's if I had gotten there an hour earlier, imagine what could have happened. And I'm 28 and I just think I'm doomed. I'm going to die an old maid. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. This is the prime of my life. And, nobody wants me. What am I going to do? And she says, "But Pamela, you did not know him." And I say, I know, but we really connected. So then, moving along, Okay, so then I go with this friend of mine to Woodstock, New York for a long weekend, and she's a social worker too, and we have these deep conversations, and when we're not having deep conversations about social work and saving the world, we're out dancing or manhunting. So we go out to this bar in Woodstock, and as you can imagine, there's about 700 aging hippies with beards down to the floor. And then in the corner, there are these two sort of young, handsome, dark-skinned men who approach us. And my guy is called Salvador, and he's from Cuba. And Salvador is actually a construction worker, but he tells me he had this engineering degree in Cuba, and he sweet talks me, and by the time he is done, I feel like I am the last raft off the Malecon. And even though he's a construction worker, he's not just some schlump or something, he is the foreman of the whole crew. So I get into the back of his truck, and we're driving around this lake on this road that he's working on, and he's showing me the painted lines that they're building and this masterpiece that he's creating, and I act as if I'm fascinated because I really want him to kiss me. So Salvador sweet talks me down to the last drop of my clothing because I don't know when to say when. And by the time he is done, I am convinced that this is the man that I want to marry and have his babies, and he is the one. And then when it's time to say goodbye, he says he wants to see me again. So I run back to my therapist and I say he wants to see me again. And she says, yes, but what do you want? And I say, of course I want Salvador. So a week later, I'm in New York City, he's in Woodstock, and it's snowing, and he's promised to come meet me. I'm in this little flowered dress, and I'm wearing my black sex kitten boots, and I'm in my little studio in the West Village, and there's this canopy bed, and I have made these naked, angst-ridden woman in pain sculptures that are all over the apartment. And my cat is named Billie Holiday, and the fire's going, and I'm waiting for Salvador. And about 15 minutes go by and he doesn't come. And we've had all these deep conversations on the phone. So then 30 minutes go by and I'm reheating the spaghetti on the stove and the candles are burning down and I'm wondering what's going on. And I'm thinking, oh, you know, it's snowing. It's probably a little late. And then I call my best friend, this other therapist, the social worker. And she says, oh, he's probably late. You know, maybe he got caught in the snowstorm. And then I say, and then an hour passes, and then 2 hours pass. And as Carrie would say, normal people might move on, but no. I am convinced that he's gonna come. So a few hours pass, and I call back my friend and I say, do you think I should call the hospitals because maybe he's had an accident? And she's like, no, Pamela, I think maybe he got caught in the snowstorm. So now I'm thinking, you know, I'm paging him, and I realize at some point that he's only given me his pager. He has not given me his phone number, so I'm paging, and I'm paging, and I'm paging. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe his mother died, or maybe there was a concrete pouring emergency, or maybe his car is flipped upside down and he's trapped in the seatbelt and the emergency workers are coming and there's blood, and he's saying to the emergency workers with his last gasp, I have to call someone. So I go back to Dr. Olarte a few days later. And she says, you know, Pamela, there is this, now she's Russian, there's this expression in Argentina. It's a macho expression. And it is, there are many, I'm gonna try to get this right. In the world, there are many chapels, but only one cathedral. So I look at her and I say, so I've become a chapel? And she says, but Pamela, you didn't know him. And I say, I know, but we really connected. So then I take up salsa dancing. And the thing about salsa is you are guaranteed of a serotonin rush, you are guaranteed of heart palpitations, and you are guaranteed of safe physical contact. So while I am salsa dancing one night, I meet Edgar. And the problem with dancing salsa with Latin men is if you are like me, you are 6 feet tall in heels, and Latin men are often short. Edgar is particularly short. He's about 4 feet tall. But this doesn't bother me, because I think of Gandhi, and Gandhi changed the world. So Edgar is calling me, and after a few weeks, we're actually dating, and he likes me, and he's saying these things like, your lips are like tulips, and your hair is like the waves of the ocean, and I want to write a song for you, my gitana. And he's calling me gitana, which means gypsy in Spanish, because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life, and I want to move to Mexico, but of course I think it's sexy. So, however, I am doing things differently this time because I am trying to have a relationship, so I have decided to take it slow. But one night, my friend, the social worker, says, Pamela, can I borrow your apartment in the city so I can go with Edgar's friend and not have to go back to Queens? And I say, sure, you know, I haven't slept with Edgar, but maybe this is the moment. Because the thing is, Edgar happens to be a construction worker too. However, he's also a composer. And he has told me that he has a piano in this loft in the East Village that he's refurbishing, and he really wants me to see his piano. So I pack my toothbrush and my sexy nightgown, and I'm really excited. And he says, should we walk? But the thing is, we're all the way across town, and it's about 40 blocks, and it's freezing cold. So I say, you know, I'll pay for a cab. So we're going into the depths of Alphabet City, which at this point is still artsy and mixed neighborhood and a little funky, and there's some gangs, and there's like graffiti and garbage sculptures. And then all of a sudden we pull up to his loft apartment, which is this building covered with umbrellas, and there are red and yellow and green and blue umbrellas and ripped umbrellas, and these umbrellas with clouds and hanging off of them, and they're all hanging off the side of this building. And I say, wow, that's interesting. And he said, oh yes, we call it Umbrella House. So we go in, and he opens this little padlock, which kind of looks like one of those gym lockers that you use, and he opens about 3 of those, and then we go in, and the staircase is a little dark. And we're walking up about 5 flights of stairs, and I'm panting now, and it's dusty, and it's dark, and I'm getting a little nervous, because, you know, I don't really know this guy, even though I'm madly in love with him. And so we get up to his place, and he unbolts about 12 locks, and we go in, and I hit my head on the paper lantern, which was, of course, too low, and then I almost trip over the floorboard, which is open, and there's this hole in the floor. And he says, oh yeah, you know, I mentioned we're refurbishing. So I say, would it be okay to use your bathroom? So I go into the bathroom, and he says, wait, and like an elf, he starts rearranging these wood planks and moving tools and construction materials. And then he unearths the toilet, which has no seat, and he says, if you want to wash your hands, there's a bottle of water and a bucket over there. So I'm like, okay. And at this point, I'm getting a little bit nervous, and I realize I can't go home because my friend is sleeping in my 4-poster canopy bed. So I come out and I say, where's the piano? And I'm looking for this baby grand. And he takes a tarp off of this keyboard, which is sitting on top of 2 milk crates. And then he says, let me play you your song. So I'm going to attempt to just recreate it a little bit. So it goes something like this. Gitana, 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 gitanilla. No tienes futuro, no tienes pasado. So if you think my voice is bad, imagine some really like scary cross between Tom Waits and Bob Dylan. So now I'm thinking, fuck. Do I have to sleep with him just because he wrote me a song? So he says, you look a little anxious, let me relax you. So he takes me into his bed, which is this converted closet, and there's a wood plank I'm supposed to lie on. And then he starts wrapping this bandana around his head, and he kind of looks like the teacher in The Karate Kid. And he tells me to shut my eyes and imagine rivers of relaxation running through my body. And I'm lying there stiff as a plank, just thinking, shit, 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 I want to go home. And I hear this little noise. And I bolt up. It's this kind of scratching, bumping noise. And he says, oh, don't worry, that's just the rats. but they can't get you because they're on the walls. So I pass the windows, which are actually tarps because there's no glass in them, and then I kind of look at him and I say, Edgar, are you a squatter? And he said, yeah, I think that's what you call it. At this point, I have this major epiphany, which is that I am not a bohemian. When I was 13, I really wanted to be a Marxist. I read the Communist Manifesto, and I read Gandhi's biography, and I watched the movie 12 times, and I tried not to gossip, and I tried to hate material things, but I really like them. And I realized in this moment that I liked running water, and I liked men who could pay their own rent. So I go back to my therapist and she says, oh, so, but you know, as you can imagine, Edgar didn't go very far on this night, and I had clearly gone a little too far downtown. But what do I do? Because I'm just miserable, and I'm a little bit heartbroken, but mostly just embarrassed and depressed, and another year has gone by this point, and I still am single. And she says, you just need to watch for red flags. So I think, okay. And I say, am I always going to be a chapel, Dr. Olarte? And she says, Pamela, a chapel is a small holy place. So, flash forward a few years to today, and I find myself divorced after a 10-year hiatus on dating. And the one thing I can say after being released again back into the dating world, which is sort of a terrifying and dangerous thing for all of us, is that I'm trying again to look for red flags and hoping that perhaps I have learned something from my past and from the wisdom of Dr. Olarte. These days, however, my criterion has changed, and my new stalking ground is the playground, because I have 4-year-old twins. These days, when I see a dad with a diaper hanging out of his back pocket, I think, wow, that's sexy. And then I think, I wonder if he does the dishes. Thank you.